1. Little backstory. My aunt has always had a greedy streak ever since I was a kid. She is the type of person that will yell at a store employee because something that was advertised isn't in stock, or not at that particular store, or not on sale, and has been banned from entering multiple stores. When my grandmother was on her deathbed, my aunt talked her way into getting my grandmother to sign her on as an executor of the will, and ended up taking everything and anything that had the most value. Fast forward. My uncle was my best friend. I always looked up to him as a kid. He was a truck driver, so he would be gone for a long time, and I remember one summer, he even took me with him on the road. But sadly, my uncle had cancer, and while he was in the hospital, my aunt had tried to get him to assign her as an executor of his will, but since he was quick to pick up on what happened when my grandfather passed away, he hired a professional estate lawyer that would take care of everything. If you can imagine, my aunt was not very happy, and was quick to throw out a sob-story of how offended she was that her brother couldn't entrust her with an important task. This went on for 2 weeks. Even on his last day in hospice, she still brought it up, and was asked to leave by nurses. He passed away peacefully in 2011. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I quickly found out why my aunt was kicked out. So we were all asked to gather at my mom's home, where the estate lawyer came to tell us who was getting what. Finally, my time came on the list, and I was surprised to have anything willed to me. What did my uncle will to me? Why, his rig and car, of course. My uncle's rig is a 2008 Lone Star International, which was fully loaded. My uncle's car is a 1966 Chevelle SS. My first thought was, what the hell am I going to do with a big rig? My aunt's first thought, well, she didn't have a first thought. She just screamed and cussed at the lawyer, saying I was too sick to have those things, and didn't deserve them because I was his nephew and not his sister. The lawyer asked her to sit down, and said he would get to her. When my aunt sat down, she looked at me and said, "You're giving me the title of both of those." To which I laughed and said, "In your dreams, maybe." The lawyer kept going down the list, and because my uncle was a legend, he put my aunt at the bottom of the list and said, and I quote, "To my sister I am leaving her my luckiest, most important dollar, because all present at this meeting will know she needs it most." And then was handed the dirtiest-looking Canadian $1 coin that was sealed in a block of acrylic. Myself, my dad, and my other uncles nearly wet ourselves laughing. My aunt, however, didn't find it that funny, and instead went into another tirade on how this was unfair and saying she didn't have anything to hold on to that was his. The day passed, and then the nightmare began. My aunt would call over and over and over asking about the truck, wanting to buy the car, if I was going to sell the truck, if I was going to sell the car. All to which I said no. Things got worse when my aunt started saying she wanted her car and she had someone that wanted to buy our truck. At this point, I got extremely irritated and said, "It's not your car, it's my car, and my car is staying with me. And it's not our truck, it's my truck, and no one is buying it." A week later, I woke up and heard something, so I went to investigate, and there was a tow truck in the driveway. I quickly told the tow truck driver, who was a friend of my aunt's, that if he so much as put a hand on that Chevelle, I would have him arrested for trespassing and grand theft, and then proceeded to call the police. Cops showed up, and I told the police officer my side of the story. Then he went to my aunt, and the conversation went like this. "Ma'am, can you tell me, is this your car?" "Yes, it is. He just won't give it to me." "Ma'am, do you have the title of this vehicle?" "No, I do not. He won't give it to me." "Well, ma'am, I looked at the registration and title of the vehicle, and he is listed as the owner of the vehicle. That vehicle is legally not yours, and having it towed could land you and your friend prison time for auto theft." "Well, I think I'm the one who should get the car, because he can't even take care of himself." "Ma'am, doesn't matter what you think. What matters is legal ownership, which you do not have." A week later, my aunt had attempted to take me to court for the car. The case wasn't even put before a judge. My aunt refiled the claim again. It went to court, and once I provided a copy of the will, title, and registration, the judgment went in my favor, and my aunt was forced to pay my court costs after dismissing my aunt's claims with prejudice, meaning she can never file that lawsuit again. Then, tragedy struck again. This time a great-uncle passed away. I was in the will again. Can you guess what was left to me? A new car, my great-uncle's 1967 Chevrolet Impala SS, which he restored himself. My great-aunt, his widow, was thrilled that I got it, but the mood was quickly soured when she realized that my entitled aunt, her niece, was not thrilled that I got it. This time she stepped it up a notch and skipped the screaming and complaining, and instead went to scheming. 3 days after I took possession of the Impala, she rented not just one flatbed, but 2 flatbeds. She managed to get the Impala onto the flatbed and sped off, leaving her boyfriend behind, attempting to get the Cheville on his flatbed as quickly as he could, while I stood by on the phone with police. Police quickly caught up with my aunt and arrested her. Her boyfriend was arrested in my driveway and soiled himself in the process. Her and her boyfriend both were hit for 2 counts of motor vehicle theft. Both were charged and found guilty and sentenced to 2 years and 2 days in jail. Endpoints. I haven't spoken to or heard from my aunt since she got out of prison, and I have no desire to. Before she was released from jail, I filed a restraining order against her, and it has stood since then. But the last I heard, she is still screaming at store employees, complaining about money, and asking about me and the vehicles. I still am the owner of all 3 vehicles, the Cheville, the Impala, and the Lone Star International, and don't plan on selling any of them. I repair and build computers for a living, but more and more I have been getting into auto repair as a hobby. As I do live in Canada, I do not drive the Impala or Cheville during winter months. But every year, I always take my great-aunt, who is now 96 years old, to A&W to get a burger, onion rings, and an ice-cold root beer in the Impala, which is something my great-uncle did for her since he got the Impala in 1970. A very good friend of my uncle's, who now owns a business, actually rents the Lone Star International from me. He promised me that he would not get a single scratch or spot of rust on any single part of it. And to this day, that Lone Star looks factory new and has been all over the world. The guy that rents the truck even continued doing a little tradition my uncle did, which was to get a decal on the truck of the state, province, territory, flag of the places the truck has visited. It currently has 31 state decals and 3 province decals on it. My great-aunt isn't in great health, and she has told me that she put me in her will so that I will get her cars, which are 2 of my great-uncle's first cars, originally left to her in the will, which are a 1958 Chevrolet Impala and a 1957 Plymouth Belvedere Fury, which is my favorite car. I saw the movie Christine when I was 6 years old in 1996. Ever since, I loved the car. Because she knows that I will take care of it and park it right beside the 67 Impala SS. I can already imagine the fallout that I'm going to get for that. So there may even be another post, though I really do hope there is not. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day or evening. 2. So this weekend, me and my sister were starving, so we decided to go to our local chain wing restaurant. Me and my sister walked into the lobby at the same time as this family of 7, alongside an entitled mother, an entitled father, and 5 kids. They walked up to the counter and asked for a table for all of them, as we walked behind them and asked for a table for 2. We went to go sit down as the entitled mother and father started talking loudly about how they hated the long wait times. The wait times could have been shorter if they booked a seat in the app, but the father had said it was a marketing scheme to try to get his information. Our wait was for 25 minutes, and we had to sit down next to them as the mother screamed at her kids because they were talking and using their phone. The whole time, the mother and father would walk up to the counter and ask the waitress how long their wait was. After the 25-minute wait was up, the waitress got us some menus and asked us to come with her, and we walked with her to our table. We got halfway to our table until the mother walked up to us. Here is a dialogue for the following interaction as we left with the waitress for our table. Why are they leaving before us? Because they have a smaller party. Okay, and we have small children. We need to be seated before those teenagers. Ma'am, I understand, but you need to sit down. After I seat them, I will be able to seat you. EM began to walk up to the waitress and get up in her face. Ma'am, please sit down. I need to seat them. After they're seated, you guys will be our top priority. I have small children. They're getting impatient, and they need to be seated. Mind you, her children didn't look impatient at all. If anything, they kind of looked sad. Ma'am, I understand, but we are a bit busy right now. Please go sit back down. No, my children are starving, and they need to be seated. Ma'am, if you had used our app, then you would have possibly been sat down a bit earlier. At this point, the entitled father had walked up to the waitress and stood next to the entitled mother, and they began to both argue with the waitress. Me and my family have been waiting too long, and my children are starving. You need to sit us down before these brats. We have small children. My sister says, Look, you guys are acting like assholes. Both of you just need to sit down and leave the waitress alone and just wait. It's not gonna kill you. Entitled father was getting visibly angry. I don't give a fuck. You aren't a parent, so you wouldn't understand how hard it is to take care of young children. So you wouldn't understand, bitch. My sister was about to flip out on this guy, but I was trying to calm her down before this guy left in a body bag for calling her a bitch. Sir, you will not talk to other patrons like that. Go sit down before you're asked to leave. Entitled father was clearly pissed. Go get your fucking manager. This is the worst customer service I've ever had. The waitress was pissed, but she went to get her manager as the father was fuming and walked around the store in circles out of rage. The manager came, and they immediately started screaming at her as me and my sister started to laugh at how ridiculous the situation was. The manager, who barely knew about the situation, walked over to where the entitled parents were and started trying to help. The entitled fathers seemed to be relieved. Thank God, this bitch. Whoa there. You aren't going to be using profanities inside my restaurant. You need to get out of here. We aren't leaving until we eat. We have small children. I'm telling both of you politely. I understand you guys have small children, but there are plenty of other places you can go to. You need to get out before I call the cops on you guys for trespassing. This seemed to scare the entitled parents, because they gathered their kids and ran out of there. Eventually, the waitress was able to seat us, and we gave her a $20 tip. No one deserves to have to deal with an entitled parent. 3. Before I begin, it's important to mention that I'm autistic. I'm therefore incredibly sensitive to loud noises and get very stressed when I'm in a loud environment for a prolonged period of time. English also isn't my first language. On to the story. Yesterday, me and my mother picked up our cat from the vet. He was very stressed, so I tried to be as careful as possible. It was our first time visiting this vet, and it was in a pretty rural area that was unfamiliar to us. Me and my mother wanted to take the bus home because gas prices are through the roof right now. And once we arrived at the bus stop, we met the rest of the cast. Everything was fine at first. The kids of Karen, her 4 little angels, were playing together, and although they were a bit loud, they didn't cause much of a ruckus. Just kids being kids. The nice lady approached us and asked about our cat, who was calmly resting in his transport box. The nice lady was also a cat owner, and so we started a little conversation in a group of 3, talking about our love of cats. The issue began after around 5 minutes of waiting time, where a fallen-over advertisement poster became the victim of these 4 kids. They started kicking it around and got incredibly loud, while using incredibly vile vocabulary that would even make a sailor cringe. I tried to ignore it at first, trying to continue the conversation with the nice lady, but after around 15 minutes of hearing these kids screech around very cruel insults at the woman pictured on the advertisement, and literally breaking the frame the poster was embedded in, I had enough. During these 15 minutes, Karen did nothing and just watched all of this go down with a smile on her face, while everyone else looked visibly uncomfortable. In an attempt of pure desperation to get the noise to stop, I walked over to one of Karen's little angels, who was holding the poster him and his siblings violently ripped out of the frame, and told him calmly but firmly to hand over the poster so I could put it away. He did so reluctantly, and as I grabbed the broken things off the ground to put them away, Karen finally took action. But instead of doing her literal job and controlling her crotch goblins, she came over to me. The interaction was something like this.
What the hell are you doing?
I'm putting away the poster. What your kids are doing isn't okay. And some idiot left it there so my kids can do whatever they want with it. You were also their age once. Try to be more understanding. I don't know about y'all, but vandalism wasn't really a typical childhood activity for me. But maybe that's just me. That doesn't make it okay. This is still public property. Your kids are also incredibly loud and disrespectful. Everyone here besides you is incredibly bothered by the way your kids act. Karen cut me off.
Oh, shut up, you liberal. It's not that serious. Who do you think you are, huh?
I seriously don't know where she got the idea that I'm a liberal. Probably because of the way I dress. At this point, my mind went blank. She came incredibly close up to my face, trying to tower over me, and screamed at me. She, of course, wasn't wearing a mask, revealing her very horrible choice of lipstick color that I could only describe as a pink and orange highlighter mixed together. I'm incredibly afraid of close contact and instantly felt threatened, so I unintentionally got a little louder as well. I don't appreciate being talked to this way. Talk to me like a grown adult. Karen proceeded to tell me to calm down, after literally screaming inches from my face, acting like I was the irrational one. At this point, my mother called me over. She noticed that I was becoming very distressed, and knows I have a hard time stopping arguments once they start. I came back to my mother and the nice lady in a huff. I was still distressed about the situation, as they tried their best to distract me by continuing our previous conversation, telling me that trying to reason with someone like that isn't worth it and just a waste of time. Karen, meanwhile, went absolutely ballistic, ranting to her friend loudly, stomping and pointing at me like a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum over not getting ice cream for dinner. Her ponytail of frizzled, platinum-bleached hair flailed around as she did so. Her crotch goblins, of course, went back to the poor poster and started violating it again. I decided not to get myself involved again, and just started talking about cats again with my mother and the nice lady, trying my best to keep my sensory overload under control. Karen half-heartedly tried to stop her kids from violating the poor poster, to no avail. After she got them to stop, they just went right back to it after like 5 seconds max. After around 20 minutes of waiting for this godforsaken bus, Karen, her friend, and her sweet angels decided to go home on foot. Before they did, though, one of Karen's little angels, aka the one who held the poster when I took it away, decided to come up to me to screech in my ear before walking away with his mother. Afterwards, I was able to enjoy 10 minutes of silence before the bus finally came. My ears still hurt after an hour, though. And that's the tale of Karen getting upset at me for doing her job. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. As a side note, I'm planning on working in education. I'm absolutely appalled and stunned that parents like this exist. It's seriously the biggest reason why I consider studying something outside of education. The kids often aren't the problem. It's seriously the parents who think their kid can just do whatever they feel like because they're capable of doing no wrong. I'm aware that I could have done a lot better in this situation. I still have a lot to learn when it comes to handling entitled parents. 4. I'm 20, and I love to read these bizarre and almost unrealistic stories, but I never thought I would be posting my own here. First thing, I would like to say that I work for a privately owned dental office as a dental assistant. This Monday, May 2nd, I was told that they would train me to be front desk, and I wouldn't be handling finances or insurance, so just check patients in, triage, taking some calls, and patient flowcharts. So today, Friday, is our hygiene days. Only hygiene patients and our doctors are out for the day, due to these patients all having recent visits. I'm cleaning the office, restocking, setting up for next Monday, when a lady and man walk in together. She says, "I need to talk to someone about finances." Well, I know my manager is here, who is the main one who deals with finances, but she was in important meetings for the day with insurances, other offices, and companies. By the way, this woman and man didn't call ahead or have an appointment, so I said, "Okay, I'll let my manager know, but since she's booked with meetings and you didn't have an appointment, it will be a while." They proceed to sit down, and I go back to my paperwork, until my co-worker who was training me came back from the bathroom, and I let her know they were waiting on our manager, then go back to working with small talk about how my co-worker's diet and Zumba is going. This bitch. Not even 30 fucking minutes of them waiting, this lady comes up, and at first I thought she was going to ask how much longer after picking up one of our supply pens from the container. She goes, "Your receptionists need to do your job and stop gossiping." I'm clearly confused because we're not even talking about them. My coworker speaks up. "We weren't talking about you?" "Yes, you were, and you're going to give me your name so I can report you to corporate." That makes me speak up, and my coworker turns around to where she says something on the lines of, "Whatever, I don't have time for this." And I say, "Ma'am, this is a private practice, not a corporation." "I still want both your names." I just turn back to my desk and continue writing, and the lady stands there for a bit before speaking up again. "Are you going to give me your names?" "No, and I don't have to." "Well, I'm going to get them no matter what." I smiled underneath my mask and looked at her from where I sat and said in mock sweetness, "You can go ahead and try if you'd like to." She then sat back down. After multiple patients and more paperwork, the man comes up. "How much longer are we going to have to wait?" And let me tell you, his tone was nowhere near being nice or friendly. "Sir, you both walked in without calling and have no appointment. My manager is the only one in at the moment who deals with finances, and she's booked with meetings." "Oh, we've been waiting for like an hour. Where is her office?" I hesitated for a moment. Granted that he was being aggressive, and I didn't know if I was even allowed to tell him that information, because I don't know if he would try to force himself into her office while she was still in a meeting. I guess he took that as confusion and proceeded, "Where is your manager's office? Is it around here?" This idiot. He thought our manager worked in an off-site office. "Sir, her office is here." "Where?" My coworker speaks up. "We can't tell you that, and you can't just go into our office." "How much longer is this meeting? Meetings don't take an hour." I just walk away from him and sat my butt down. "You're going to have to wait." About 30 minutes go by, and my manager has finally come to the front. Apparently he was being very hostile to her right off the bat, and then I hear from my manager, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave from the premises or I'm going to call the cops." "Fine, then call them." Right when she starts to reach for the phone, they start to leave. My manager proceeds to talk to the lady, and turns out she borrowed money from the man and wants a refund for the work we did on her son. The man wasn't even a patient of ours. But I hear her tell our manager, "See, now you have to feel what I go through because of you." "Okay, lady, we weren't the ones who told you to go to some sketchy dude for money to pay for your full-grown son's treatment." Anyways, my poor co-worker was so stressed out that she was going to break her diet due to stress. Eat some cookies from the bakery next door. Fuck those two, honestly. 5. The setup. Our tale begins in my teen years, about 10 or 11 years ago. It was summer and my parents wanted to go on vacation. Me being a 16-year-old dumbass with both a gaming addiction and seeing my cue to living the free, independent, unsupervised life. Much like a house cat with an open door for 2 weeks opportunity. Offer to house and dog sit while they and my sister went on vacation. Some important background information is probably needed here, since else some dumbasses might call my parents neglectful for leaving a 16-year-old unsupervised for 2 weeks. I'm from a way safer and secure place than the US, We lived in a suburb, and I was taught most life skills by the time I was 12. The only dangers I could be exposed to would be alcohol poisoning and strains to the wrist from the sheer amount of rounds I would force. You know, the typical threats for a boy in a country in which 16-year-olds can buy beer. The Boy and the Karen Megasaurus Rex. Week 1. While gaming took 90% of my time away, and I developed the day and night schedule of a back-end developer, I still did all the chores around the house, with a few exceptions, since I deemed they could wait. I checked the mailbox, and there is a handwritten letter with runes of the ancient. Using my old doctor's notes as a Rosetta Stone, I deciphered that it was from the president of our equivalent of a homeowners association. Imagine an HOA with a fifth of the power the typical HOA in the US would have. A Hawkeye of the HOA Avengers. If it was in a spot, it would only receive participation awards. You get the point. The Moira written tomb said that the grass on my front lawn was too tall, according to regulations. I went out, took a look at the grass, which was maybe 1 centimeter too tall. That's the equivalent of a jelly bean to my freedom measurement, folks. Same day, I cut the grass, 'cause might as well do so to keep the peace. The day later, a new letter written by the same Shakespearean wannabe came. I grabbed my Indiana Jones hat and performed a heathen ritual in the shed to read the message. The roses in my front yard were going too far through the fence by 15 centimeters. That's an average-sized carrot in Murricana. I once again comply. On the 3rd day of shitmas, the true cause of annoyance said to me. My backyard's bushes were too tall. Here is where I finally get irritated, since you have to enter my parents' property to check the bush's height. With Satan's 3 commandments in hand, I go and visit my direct neighbor, who I knew were in the HOA board. I ask her about the gutter-speak letters, and she looks through them and laughs. Those are from the Banshee of Arrakis, aka the Mega Karen, who lived 10 houses further down the street. She had been kicked out of the HOA board after she poisoned 3 dogs in the neighborhood with rat poison-laced treats. Not wanting to deal with her after she threw rocks at me when I was trick-or-treating as a child, I decided to let the case rest and let my bushes be untrimmed with the glory of a 1970s porn star. The Boy, the Planted Bomb, and the Instigation. Fast forward a week into my parents' vacation. After being alone for 7 days, I finally mastered the art of playing Mozart's Requiem on the meat flute, and decided to do something else. As any teenager would, I started to plan a party. And like the good kid I was, I went around to all my nearby neighbors and warned them all about the potential noise which parties tend to create. At some point here, in my post-nut clarity, I remembered the saying, "Bitches be fading, but a good Counter-Strike match lasts forever." Instead of holding a straight-up party, I decided to invite friends over to a LAN party, so we could play Counter-Strike Source, and quickly replace the white blood cells in our body with whatever was in the knockoff energy drinks. Fast forward to said LAN party. My parents' dining room smells like teenage farts, Axe body spray, sweat, and all chips in the world mixed together. Typical LAN stuff. 1 a.m., there is a loud knock on the door. I go out, see 2 cops looking at me with a surprised Pikachu face. I look at them with the same amount of confusion. "We have a report there's a loud party going on, and there might be several minors doing drugs here." "Does energy drinks count as drugs?" "No," says Cop 2. "Then I have no idea what you're talking about." "We had a frantic woman calling constantly, which is why we came. But it seems way more of a disturbance than you guys are." At the same time, one of my friends can be heard in the background.
"Hey, Pete, get in here! The bomb has been planted, and you're the only one alive!"
Cop 1 looks at me. "Counter-Strike?" "Counter-Strike." "We'll leave you to it then." Cops left, and we lost the match. Unrelated, though. 2 days later, I get another knock on my door. There she is, the bane of all good, she who must not be mentioned without carrying Mirak's sword and a towel on you. She starts screaming that me and my drug party kept her up all night, and that I'm a horrible brat who needs to tend to my bushes if my parents don't want to lose the house. At this point I stop her and remind her that 1, the homeowners association doesn't have the power to do that. They hardly have the power to do anything except approve of house owners' requests. 2, that she was kicked out of the homeowners association due to the poison incident. 3, that I didn't even have a party. 4, that she needs to stay the fuck away from my backyard. She got even madder and started screaming that she would have me and my parents arrested, and that the poison treats were meant for my dog as well. I slammed the door on her faster than hyperspacing from Argos Row. She had royally pissed me off. No one threatens my good boy. No one. Perfect legal pettiness. So now we're at our final act, my revenge. I had about 4 days before my parents returned, so I made them count. I called the police and visited my real homeowners association neighbor and got all the necessary approvals. Then I went over and talked with the neighbors surrounding her house. I would do all the yard work, which involved loud equipment around her house. Legally, we were allowed to make noise from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. with yard work, but it's considered rude to do it after 5 p.m. That didn't stop me, though. Like a druid on Paragon level 256, I just kept sending leaves and grass flying, as if all the bushes, trees, and odd plants had pissed in my grandfather's ashes. She came out and screamed at me, even threw a rock at me. It brought back old memories, but I didn't care. I was gonna make as much legal sound as possible. Whenever she complained, I just told her that their plants weren't up to HOA standard. Friday rolls around, it's 8 a.m. Me and my friends are gathered in front of her house. We have all the tools ready, purchased by the blood coin of my insanity-induced labor the 2 days prior. It's time to make her pay. We turn on the speaker, the barbecue, and crack up a beer. Speaker is set to the exact legal limit of how loud the music is allowed to be. Most of her neighbors come out and join during the day, since I had invited them while kill-billing their plants. She screamed constantly for an hour, called the cops twice, who left after seeing my permits from themselves and the HOA. That's right, bitch. If you want a party to complain about, then you shall get the finest party of the Shire, just outside of your house. We keep it up to the exact time limit. Now, for those wondering, all 3 dogs survived and she was served and settled out of court. She moved a couple of years after my revenge took place, unrelated to the incident, and so did my parents, which means I don't know what happened to her in the end. Maybe she is dead. Maybe she is being mean to some kid somewhere else. Or maybe she turned around and became a nice person. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to The Impractical Proudness of Parrots, Ipop, episode 84. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then I'd appreciate it if you would give it a like and share it around to any and everywhere you can. It is all very, very helpful. Also, before we go on, I would like to say very much big thanks and hugs and kisses and all sorts of things to everyone who did a super thanks yesterday. You kind of blew me away. I wasn't expecting to get really any. Or if I was fortunate enough, maybe got 1 or 2, but you guys, you blew me away with your generosity. So thank you so much. It's not even the money, although the money is good, but it's that you would care enough to do that. And of course, the money is helpful. For anyone who missed yesterday's video, a super thanks is basically just like a super chat, except it's for a regular video. That's really all it is. Okay, let's see. There are no shout-outs today. No, there aren't. It's just that big shout-out to all you kind people. Let's see. I should make a list. Would that be something you'd be interested in? Giving shout-outs in videos for people that have done donations and things? It's worth thinking about. Okay, that's not the question of the day, though. Right. I had it. It's popped out of my head for a sec. We'll get it back. We'll bring it back. Okay. Right. This could be a dicey one, because I just changed it in my head a little bit. What celebrity, now no cheating, don't say me, I'm talking about real celebrities. What celebrity do you think is beyond reproach? And I will not correct you in the comments, because I'm sure I know things about some of the ones you'll mention that means they're not beyond reproach. I've kind of gotten to the point where most of the people I used to admire that I'd put way up on those pedestals, you have to throw them sandwiches so they didn't starve. I've kind of stopped doing that. I still like most of those people. I don't idolize them. I just appreciate what they do. And, well, you're human. You suck in some ways. You're good in others. Keep doing your thing. Okay. Except Stephen Fry. I've been aware of his flaws from the get-go. I still love that man, and too precious. So, who are yours? Leave it in a comment below. Okay. I think we're done there for now. So, with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.